was a syllabus for you on community-based disaster preparedness. So, several instances of community involvement in disaster management. For example, from our institute, we are training the volunteers and community-based organizations at the district level in collaboration with the state government, fire service department, and SDRF, State Disaster Response Force, and NDRF, National Disaster Response Force also. So these volunteers are trained at the district level, identifying the volunteers from different NGOs, NGOs, clubs, charities who are doing social work, including the Anganwadi workers, self-help group representatives, ASHA workers, etc. They will be trained in the skills, such skills, first aid skills, and they will be deployed for disaster response and relief and search and rescue operations. So this is the procedure actually we are adopting now in Karnataka. In addition to the government bodies like police, fire, home guard, civil defense, etc., we are also training the communities so that they will be helpful to the district and local administrations during the times of disasters. That is how the community is involved in the response and relief operations. Even before also, the concept of community-based disaster management is that they will be involved in any disaster planning right from the local levels. So at level, how many disabled are there, how many women are there, how many aged are there. So identified by the community, identify who are the most vulnerable and how they can protect them in the planning process itself by incorporating appropriate mitigation and preparedness requirements. That is how the community is also part of the disaster management planning. Right from the planning, if they are part of the disaster management process, it will be helpful in the event of any disasters. We can also address the problems of community if they are involved right from the beginning in the planning process for disaster management. So that is the disaster management, because community knows the vulnerability of the local areas better than the external bodies, external government agencies, because officers come from outside many times, so they will not be aware of the local vulnerabilities and local disasters, since the community who are there who are residing in that area will be better knowing about their vulnerabilities. They should also be part of the planning process. At least the elected representatives of the local bodies or the self-help groups of the there in the local areas, or some NGOs, such are volunteers who are living in the local areas, must be part of the disaster management planning, so that they will be able to help the government agencies, as well as they will take care of themselves in the event of disasters. So that is the purpose of community-based disaster management. I'll move to the next one. So I have already told this. So they will understand better. They have all the insights about the local indigenous traditional technologies, traditional way of the disasters. Already they are managing the disaster, but only that they need some additional training, some skills, so that they will be able to better manage the disasters at the local levels. So even the right decisions they can help the government agencies to take. So all these will be part of the community-based disaster management planning process. So this is not opening. Actually, video is there, but it is not opening. I will move to the next one. Next unit. So this is the last unit of the in this particular. There is fourth unit actually. The role and responsibilities of central and state governments. So let me move ahead. So what are the objectives of this session? So describe the government's approach in dealing with disasters. Know the role of central government. Know the role of state government. Understand the National Disaster Management Authority. Describe the role of district administration. Role and responsibilities of the agencies like armed, paramilitary, police, force, fire, home guard, civil defense, etc., etc. So this is the important learning objective of this unit number 4. Let us start with role of central government and state government. So we cannot divide, you cannot demarcate, so you cannot demarcate the interlinkages between the central government, state government, district administration, local bodies like municipalities and panchayati raj institutions, and other departmental agencies, or for that matter, the civil defense, home guards, police, fire and emergency services. So these are the stakeholders who are involved in the disaster management from the government side. Let me start with role of central government. So before I tell any role of central or state government, we must remember, all of us must remember that the state or central or district administrations derive their powers and functions or responsibilities from the Disaster Management Act 2005, which was enforced in the year 2005 on December 23rd. It is enforced. Has been enacted and it is enforced across the country now. So the visibility of this Act 2005, the provisions were implemented very strictly in the year last 2 years during the COVID times, because until COVID comes, the visibility was very poor as far as the Disaster Management Act 2005 was concerned, because it was not so implemented, not so strictly across the country. During COVID-19, you must be remembering that the provisions like penal clauses under the chapter number 10, funding under the chapter number 9, funds were devolved to the local authorities for managing the disaster, managing the COVID-19. So most of the provisions, almost there are about 11 chapters in the State Disaster Management Act 2005. About 79 sections are there in that. Without this Disaster Management Act 2005, we cannot talk about the role central and state or district administration, because all of these bodies at different levels, central, state, and district, and local bodies derive their roles and responsibilities and functions and powers from the Disaster Management Act 2005. Therefore, I need to mention that Act itself, and I will go one by one now. What are the roles and responsibilities defined in the Disaster Management Act 2005? In general, how they do it. So this is the structure of Disaster Management Act in disaster management in India. So there is a national disaster management structure here in India. We have Government of India at the helm of affairs, where we have National Disaster NDMA. We call it, headed by the Prime Minister of India. So it is assisted by National Executive Committee, which is in turn chaired by the Home Secretary. So Home Secretary it is headed by the Prime Minister and it is chaired by the Home Secretary. So there will be 9 members here in NDMA. Prime Minister himself is the chairman. So that shows the importance of disaster management in India, because it is headed by none other than the Prime Minister, Honorable Prime Minister of India. So this is the highest power-making body in India for as far as disaster is concerned. So it will frame guidelines. So I'm just explaining here in the chart so that you will be able to understand at least some of the important you need to remember. So that is why I just tell from this chart itself. So NDMA, the role of NDMA, Disaster Management Authority, is to prepare guidelines for all types of disasters, how to implement, how to manage the disasters like chemical disaster, or drought, or flood, or earthquakes, or tsunami, whatever. So they have prepared excellent guidelines and uploaded on their website, NDMA website, for all people to use and implement. So it is mandatory for the state government, district administration, departments of the state government or central government to implement all these guidelines in their which all these guidelines. So this is the mandated in the Disaster Management Act 2005 also. So the guidelines prepared by the NDMA are supposed to be implemented by the state government and district administrations in the country. So this is the one important policy making body also. So the national policy on disaster management is prepared by NDMA. It is also uploaded on the website. 2009 policy is already there in the website. We have 2016, 2019 also. We have prepared, the NDMA has prepared National Disaster Management Plan, which is also uploaded on the website. So in aligning with the National Disaster Management Plan prepared by NDMA, the state governments and the district administrations are preparing their disaster management plans. So it is mandated in the NDMA guidelines that the state and district administrations in the entire country prepare their respective plans for disaster management, aligning with the national plan. That is mandated in the NDMA guidelines and also Act. So this is how NDMA is functioning. NDMA is the overall supervising authority and policy making body and the overall administration of the disaster management, including financing. Including financing is undertaken by the NDMA. So this is in brief. Actually, they give instructions to the state governments, state government departments, central government departments, as far as all types of disasters are concerned. For example, if there is a COVID-19 health-related disaster, then the NDMA will instruct the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare. Similarly, if there is any earthquakes, they will instruct the Ministry of Earth Sciences. If there are other chemical disasters, similarly, that particular department. So they are, if there are any other disasters, similarly, the respective department. So they have the power to give instructions and guidelines to the concerned departments for managing the disasters. So entire funding, policy making, planning, guidelines preparation, all these responsibilities are undertaken by the National Disaster Management, assisted by National Executive Committee. So we'll go to the next one here. We have MHA, Niti Aayog is there. Of course, below that there is a Ministry of Home Affairs. Ministry of Home Affairs is the nodal department in the country for all types of disasters. So we should remember that it is the nodal department for all types of disasters. So in fact, what they do is whenever there is a disaster in any part of the country, a team of experts will go to that particular state or that area and assess the losses and damages of disasters, and they will prepare the loss and damage report, memorandum. It is called Memoranda of Losses and Damages, which will be submitted to the central government, that is Ministry of Home Affairs. They will in turn assess it and finalize the funding for that state. So they would like call it as relief under the National Disaster Response Fund and also National Disaster Mitigation Fund. So Ministry of Home Affairs has all the powers to give instructions to the state governments and district administrations in terms of disaster management planning, or in terms of disaster management relief codes, or in terms of any other things. So MHA is there. So all other ministries and departments are also working continuously for their respective disasters jurisdictions. For example, Agriculture Department takes the major role of drought situations, and similarly, Ministry of Social Welfare, for example, they will take care of the social issues of vulnerable groups like disabled or any other old aged children, women, etc. So they will also have some say in the vulnerability assessment and the planning process for those vulnerable groups. So every department, almost every department in the central government has a role to play in the disaster management. These are the armed forces and NDRF. We have NDRF now. So National Disaster Response Force has been created under chapter number 8 of the Disaster Management Act. So it is called National Disaster Response Force, which is exclusively reserved for response. So there are battalions located across the country now. their battalions have been located. So as and when the disaster strikes, request will go to them, and they will deploy the battalions along with the facilities for search and rescue operations, for relief and relief operations. This is what the NDRF is doing, and we have some collaboration with NDRF in conducting training program in our institute also. So their commandants will come here. The entire team will come here. They will do the drills, develop the training skill, develop the skills, etc., etc. So we do that along with them in collaboration with NDRF. Similarly, in other states also they are doing the similar work. So that is NDRF does what it does. We have Institute of Disaster Management here, which is created under Chapter number 7 of the Disaster Management Act. So it is conducting just like our ATI Mysore, as we conduct training program for the state government employees, all the officers. They conduct training at the national level in Delhi. It is located in Rohini. Just now we are conducting a 1-week program in ATI Mysore in collaboration with NIDM New Delhi on post-disaster recovery needs. So likewise, they go to the other states, like ATIs, they do research, they do conduct training programs in different states. So that is National Institute of Disaster Management. We have National Disaster Response Force. I already just now explained you. National Disaster Mitigation Resource Network is also there. So we have state. Let us go to the state government now. This is about central. Let us go to state. So state government has got SDMA now, State Disaster Management Authority. Just like NDMA, SDMA is headed by the Chief Minister of the state. So to assist them, there is also an SEC. Like NEC, National Executive Committee, headed by the Home Minister in the center. In this, at the state level, we have State Executive Committee headed by the Chief Secretary of the state. So they will work in coordination, and the SDMAs have the highest power in the state as far as disaster management concerned. So SDMA also has the responsibility of preparing state disaster management plan, state disaster management policy, state disaster response force, state emergency operation centers. They have the responsibility to guide all the districts to prepare their district plans. They have the responsibility to instruct all the departments in the state to prepare the departmental disaster management plans, and they have to execute it. They have also the responsibility to conduct mock drills frequently in coordination with DRF and SDRF in all the districts. These are some of the responsibilities of NDMS. So during the disaster situation, they will also make an assessment of the losses and damages and submit the memoranda to the central government, that is Ministry of Home Affairs, for the relief and funding. So that is what they also, it is one of the important works of the SDMA. So we have SEC also here. I told you just now, State Executive Committee, which is headed by the Chief Secretary, and other important secretaries and DGP of the state will be part of the SDMA. So this is as far as state government is concerned. So we have here DDMAs. Next, District Disaster Management Authority. Every district is having a District Disaster Management Authority in the country. So it is headed by district magistrate or district collector or deputy commissioner, as the name exists there in the district. So DDMA has got again 7 members as members, and under the chairmanship of the deputy commissioner or the district magistrate, and 2 other members can be like any other NGO representatives or any other 2 persons. 7 plus 2, total 9 members can be members in the DDMA. So generally what they do is, in DDMA, SP, Superintendent of the Police, CEO of the Jilla Panchayat, or for that matter we have Joint Director of Agriculture, Executive Engineer, Municipal Corporation Commissioner, Additional Deputy Commissioner. Such persons will be part of DDMA, DDMA. They will be members. So this is what DDMA. DDMA's role is basically to prepare the district disaster management plan. They are also supposed to help the local bodies. They are also supposed to help the entire district, those who are working in the departments, to prepare the respective plans in the district. They will also monitor the entire district and provide funding for mitigation, response, relief, etc. After the assessment of losses and damages. They will prepare the district level disaster losses and damages and submit it to the state government. So they implement the plan very strictly throughout the year. They have to revise the plan every year without failure. Revise the plan, district plan every year. So, and the district disaster management authority, which is the deputy commissioner of the district, has all the powers to call anybody from the departments of any department to work in the disaster sites, disaster relief works, such as rescue operation. He has all the powers to call upon the resources of any other department. He has all the powers. He or she has got all the powers to instruct and guide how to do the disasters. So he has full powers and functions over the disaster management issue. So under the Disaster Management Act 2005, Chapter number 4 specifies what are the responsibilities of DDMAs, what are the powers and functions of DDMAs. So you can please go through the Chapter 4 of the Disaster Management Act. So everything has been provided in detail. So you have to read it. So District Disaster Management Authorities. It is given in the Chapter number 4 of the Disaster Management Act. SDMA, State Disaster Management Act authorities is mentioned in the chapter. NDMA is everything is very well mentioned there. I'm just giving an overview of what they're supposed to do. So we have departments dealing with disaster management, particularly fire and emergency service, home guards and civil defense, and departments like factories and boilers. So directly dealing with the disaster. In health department is related to the epidemic situations. Fire department is related to the fire and emergency services. So civil defense is always coordinating all types of disasters. So we have, for example, agriculture, horticulture, animal husbandry departments are dealing with drought and flood situations. Irrigation, PWD, etc. They are also associated with the flood and any such building collapse or any earthquake disaster. So likewise, departments are some of the departments are concerned with specific disaster. So that is it. So that's what we have said here. So the departments, ministries and departments at the central government. I already told you about civil defense, home guards, police, fire. All of them are working during the disaster situations, and they have got their own dedicated teams for the disaster management. I told you just now that in the morning, state disaster response force has been established in the state. So their job, their responsibility is to ensure that during the disaster, during any events of disaster, they will be there within 1 hour. They will be able to manage search and rescue operations, relief operations, evacuation operations, etc. And they will protect the people from injuries or loss of life. This is what these important 4 departments are already doing. So coming to the district again similar to the central state government and central government, we have similar departments there. So all the district level department officers will be coordinating these activities. So I'll just go to this chart. You can see it is more simple here to understand. Once again, I just repeat what they are supposed to do. There is a National Disaster Management Authority headed by Prime Minister. There is a State Disaster Management Authority headed by CM. District Disaster Management headed by the DM or the co-chairperson will be ZP elected president. So I told you there will be 9 members here. Similarly, there will be 9 members here. There will also be 7 plus 2. So this is how the structure of the NDMA, SDMA, DDMA have it in the Act. So we have National Executive Committee. I told you under the chairmanship of Home Secretary, State Executive Committee under the chairmanship of Chief Secretary. So they are all helping the District Disaster Management Authority and as well as State Disaster Management Authority. So we have here central government, below that state government, which is what their instructions are being followed by state government. State government's instructions are being followed by district administration. District administration instructions are like DDMA's instructions are followed by panchayats and municipalities. So there is in the chapter number 6. We please read what are the roles and responsibilities of local bodies, particularly local authorities, municipalities of different levels, and panchayat raj institutions like Gram Panchayat, Taluk Panchayat, Jilla Panchayat. All of them, what they are supposed to do has been given in the chapter number 6 of the disaster. They should also prepare town level DM plans. They should also see that their employees are trained properly in the urban disasters in case of municipalities, rural disasters in case of panchayats. So these are the functions of municipalities. Equally, they are also equally responsible for managing their own disasters at local levels. So we have prepared, government has prepared actually, we have prepared manuals for them to follow the preparation of panchayati disaster management plan in panchayats. Similarly, municipalities for urban city disaster management plans. So all of that they are supposed to implement. Their roles and responsibilities have been very clearly defined in the plan. So we have prepared responsibility matrix for different officers in the municipality, in the panchayats, including the departments in the district. So this is how the disaster management roles are performed by different government authorities. I have already told you MHA is the Ministry of Home Affairs, which is the nodal department in the country. Under which we have NIDM, National Institute of Disaster Management, and National Institute of Disaster Response Force. So this is the DMD. DMD means Disaster Management Department. For example, every state is having a disaster management department now, headed by a very senior IAS officer in the state government. For example, in Karnataka, we have additional chief secretary to the government is heading the disaster management department. There is a commissioner also for state disaster management authority. So Department of Disaster Management is the nodal department in the state, just like Ministry of Home Affairs in the central government. So it is a nodal department. It is coordinates with all departments and try to assess all the losses and damages, submits the loss and damage report to the government for funding purposes. So not only that, they will help the district administration to prepare the plans and implement them properly. So this is how the disaster management department is functioning. So that's all. I think this is as far as the role of central government, state government, and district administration. I would like to mention that army, the role of army. Now we discussed about the government departments from the central, state, and state. All of them are from the government. But from the army side, that is also government. But from army side, we have National Disaster Response Force actually now exclusively dedicated to the disaster management. So under this, if it is not possible to manage disasters, if the event is very large, severity is very large, area is very large, if they are not possible to manage by NDRF, then other military forces like army, paramilitary forces, civil defense, home guards, and state disaster response force, and even volunteers, all of them will be deployed for search and rescue and relief operations during any disaster situations. So this is how the different agencies are interlinked actually. We should not we cannot say that particular department is doing themselves. So all of them are required actually. Even the central, state, all of them are coordinating in the for managing the disasters. So this is the roles and responsibilities of the state, central, and local. So I would like to say that a little bit more highlighting of this thing is that district administration is very, very important. So because local disasters are all managed managed by the district administration only. District administration means basically district disaster management authority. So what is the role? I told you just now, chapter number 3 Disaster Management Act specifies very clearly that district disaster management authority coordinates with panchayats, municipalities, and other departments in the district. So they have some advisory committees are also in every district. They prepare the district disaster management plan, mitigation plan, preparedness plan. So even the mitigation plan, they also propose some funding requirements, so equipment requirements, etc. So all of that will be procured under the guidance of district disaster management authority, because it is an important body in the district. So not only that, they also deploy their employees for training in ATM also. That is very important because they identify the officers who are needed for disaster management. They'll send it to ETI and other national and other institutions for training. We train them and send them back to the district. So we also develop manuals, handbooks, etc. for them to follow during the disasters, like do's and don'ts, roles and responsibilities, etc. have been prepared and handed over to the respective officers and the departmental heads for following them. So, for example, district disaster management authority. So they have all the powers. For example, they can cordon off the area where affected by the disaster. They can call upon the resources of the different departments for managing the disasters. So any department which is working in the district comes under the district disaster management authority. Whenever there are resources are required, district disaster management authority can give instructions and call and seek the resources from the particular department. Suppose vehicles are required, more number of vehicles required, RTO can be instructed to send the vehicles. If there are fire engines and etc. required, fire department can be instructed to bring. If it is any other irrigation or any other department, their resources will be transferred to the disaster site. Similarly, any other department, even they have the power to hire and rent the assets and resources required for the disaster management. They can give the rent if it is a private property. Suppose we need a accommodation for COVID patients. So if they are undergoing some treatment there, they can hire a lodging or hotel. They can convert it into COVID care center or COVID hospital. They can start in them. But if it is a private property, they can hire it and they can pay the market rent. So that power is given to the district disaster management authority. So this is how the district disaster management authority works. So we have section number 71, section number 66. 66 they say that there shall be no discrimination, not 60, 61. There shall be no discrimination on the grounds of caste, creed, gender, etc. while managing the relief shelters. So whenever communities of all caste and creeds are stationed in one particular center, there is likely that there will be discrimination. So that should not happen. This is the provision of the Disaster Management Act 2005. So we have a state executive committee here, which is the nodal authority for helping the state disaster management authority. So they will take some decisions, conduct regular meetings, decide the requirements of fundings or any other facilities by the department. So they will conduct regular meetings on partnership of the chief secretary and give appropriate measures, appropriate remedies to the districts and to the affected areas. That's what the state executive committee does. So in total, we have, this is the structure of the disaster management from the government side. Of course, we have mentioned here NGOs and all, so that is not in the purview of this. But Disaster Management Act 2005 says that NGOs, based organizations, can also be part of the disaster management, and their help should be sought by the local authorities or district administration. as and when their need arises. So, for example, like community kitchen is to be managed, we can involve the volunteer. If there are certain management of some relief shelters, food, state, any private doctor or any medical officers association can come and help. So, such type of provisions have been made in the disaster management act 2005. So, basically, uh, in terms of state government roles and responsibilities, legislation, we must be careful. So, in a nutshell, what I can say is central government, which is the nodal department. The nodal department in the central government is Ministry of Home Affairs, Home Department, and yes, the NDMA is the supreme authority as far as disasters are concerned. So I told you that they are the policy maker, it is the plan maker. All the instructions are given by the NDMA, and even funding is decided by the NDMA with its nodal department, NDA, Home Affairs Department. So all these important functions at the national level are done by the National Disaster Management Authority, supported by National Executive Committee is here. So at the national level, they are the highest power making body. At the state level, state disaster management authority and state executive committee are highest authorities. And at the district level, district disaster management authority is the highest body, functioning body. So these are the actual issues. So I can say that these are the important functions of government. Thank you very much.
ಹಲೋ ಸರ್, ವಿಸಿಬಲ್ ಇದೆಯಾ ಸರ್ ಈಗ? ಅಣ್ಣ ಇವರಲ್ಲಿ PDF ಇಲ್ಲ. So today we are going to be discussing about the role of technology for disaster management. So the role of technology is in the order where it is going to be help the stakeholders towards get to know and for the prediction and for making a significant decision. There is a need of technology for disaster management. So in this chapter, we are mainly focused on objectives, introduction, and role of IT in disaster management, and remote sensing, GIS and GPS, and use and application of emerging technologies, application and use of ICST for different disasters. Yeah. So moving to the particular course objective, where we must need to know after we go through this chapter, we must need to know the insight into usages of technologies in disaster management, and you are able to explain about the technologies, whatever the technologies are usage, those meaning you have to know, and you must need to know when and where you are make use of the GPS and GIS system, and also you can able to understand and apply the modern technologies for emergency communication, and also it is given a details about the application and use of ICST for different disasters. So moving to the introduction, where you can see that the role of technology in disaster can be predictable in a such a way that it minimizes the maximum hazards and helps in reduction vulnerability. So progress in the science and technology of natural hazards and related coping mechanism uh, has made possible over the past years, introduced significant change in the integrated approach to the problematic of natural disasters. And other technologies such as artificial intelligence, IoT, big data, and blockchain become even more sophisticated. And if you look into the big data, where it is a very drastical increase in the big data analysis, where it is increasing the digitalization coupled with the growing glorification and smartphones across various demographics. The amount of data gathered has risen day by day, and the data is potential to provide a powerful insights where analyzed intelligently. So this opportunity has led to the growth of big data analytics. So therefore, nowadays most of the companies and the government, even they are, whenever they have a high amount of data, then they are going to be make use of the big data analysis to come out with the best decision. And this is plays a major role in disaster management towards monitoring the data, such as social media, communication, financial transactions, and usage of the mobiles activity across after a disaster can help to track the people movement and deliver help effectively. And moving to the one more technology, that is artificial intelligence, where AI is based on algorithms can be used in predictive analytics to help forecast and hasten recovery and response times. So AI powered image recognition can enable the identification of the damaged buildings and the roads, flooding, etc. It can also generate heat maps by integrating different streams of data. AI is based on chatbots or voice response system can also help to deal with high call volumes to emergence hotlines to deliver more effective outcomes. So when we look into the next technology, that is IoT, so we used to call it as Internet of Things. The advent of cloud computing technology with a broadband has enabled the emergence of sophisticated system known as Internet of Things. So, whatever the change detect potentially dangerous situations or earth movements, detect forest fires by measuring carbon dioxide levels, moisture and temperature. They can also enable monitoring the river levels to detect flooding. And the next technology is robotics. So robotics, you can say that with innovation in computing technology, robots today are extremely advanced and equipped to better support and complement human actors or rescue animals. These can be extremely valuable for NDRF units. So you can know that where the NDRF units, they are struggling a lot towards safeguard human life, even the animals and all. So at that time, they can make use of the mechanism technology of robotics. And robots can potentially help save victims' life without endangering rescues lives. And moving to the last one where we have a blockchain technology. So during relief efforts, organizations often face challenges around the lack of trust, transparency, and measurability to the relief efforts and ensuring resources are used to intended purposes. In such instances, misinformation can be often derail efforts and cause danger. So therefore, we can make use of the blockchain technology to come over from the particular issue. Then moving to the next, where the role of IT in disaster management. So we can say here where it is going to be, in generally, it is going to be helpful to design, implement, and evaluate the computer-based system and process components and program. So if we go with in that where the IT have plays a big role in dealing with emergencies, where we have technology and preparedness as a priority. So before the technology can help in an emergency, it must have own preparedness plan to survive a disaster. So sometimes the software which is going to be helpful to uh, pretend predict the particular situation where it is going to be helpful to uh, cut down the damages. And most of the business owners are encouraged to develop the IT disaster recovery plan so that can protect access and restore their technology. And even we have a remote monitoring and management of the network, and so therefore it could make it easy IT staff and employees to gain access this data and keep it safe from unauthorized users in the event of an emergency. And the second one where we have a broadcast of PSA. So where communication from the government officials to the public is very crucial during an emergency. Important notices and information must be communicated to all the outlets immediately, so the public has time to prepare and react. So we have federal and local governments use many technologies to keep open lines of communication. So where we have public surveys announcement may be sent out from the government office on social media by email or through smartphone alerts. So therefore, through this also you can able to create the awareness to the public. And the third one is where we have coordinating response teams and evacuation efforts. So within the facts, the government itself communication must also be coordinated, and we have national incident management system. So it is one of the example of the technology that used effectively communicate and plan. The system which is approach emergency ensures that all officials to know their roles and responsibilities, and immediately they are ready to work for the disaster management. Then the fourth one is creative predictive models. So predictive models, as we know that nowadays the business also they are going to be used the predictive model to forecast and to cut down the uncertainty. So here there is a technology which is going to be helps to create these kind of predictive models, which also can helpful to have a better understanding about the emergency or disaster will impact the area. And to understanding and viewing the prediction, it is easier for the government officials to create an effective plan of action, because the budget allocation and the funds releasing, it is all depends on the predictive models. So even you can take the example of COVID-19 pandemic period, where they are going to be each and every day they are going to be verify and validate the number of incidents and the number of recovery. So these are going to be helpful and spread across to each and everybody, that how we can easily try to avoid such kind of the disasters. And we also have kind of GPS and GIS system application. So GPS, hope all you know that where you can able to track your location, and you can able to inform to another regarding to the emergency or disaster management and response. So global positioning system, which is a location tracking system, it is going to be used satellites to assist with the navigation. And so therefore it is easy to navigate, as well as to the state as well as local government also to use these kind of the applications in the systems in emergence. And coming to GIS, it is a geographic information system. It is also similar to GPS system, but it uses satellites to provide location information, but this technology can provide different details, like track, store, check, capture data, global positioning. So all such street, vegetation, elevation, or buildings kind of you can able to access through GIS. Then moving to the next one, where we have a managing hospitals. So managing hospital is a very stressful circumstances, where whenever there is an emergency and the disaster, a single hospital uses the technology to communicate with other hospitals. So that makes them to easier to handle the situations. And even it is going to be spread the information whatever they are going to be shared, that is easily accessible even for the public. So that will be easier to get to know where is the beds are available, and where is the system which is help to immediately they can able to admit the patients. So one of the example you can quote here is where whenever you are managing hospital technology is after a mass shooting, like hospital must prepare for the influx of wounded patients and act accordingly. By staying in close communication with other local hospitals, caregivers can quickly create a plan for the swift, treatment of the victims. And moving to the next one, where we have public surrounded information. Publicly surrounded information means this the one of the area where the nowadays it is getting more importance. The social media plays a vital role regarding to the publicly sourced information. So whenever the people who are experiencing the situation first and relay their experiences online to the general public, it provides other people with value insight. We can take an example like if a person shares a short video about how fire has ravaged their neighborhood, and a viewer uh, ni- in a nearby community is more likely to take a disaster seriously. After he seeing how serious disaster is, the viewer is more likely to prepare their home and follow government officials' order to evacuate. Then moving to resource allocation. So resource allocation means the technology which helpful to allocate the resources in the better way. So knowing where and how resources are being allocated is one of the most important aspect in the emergency management. So with advancement in technology, government officials and the department heads can more easily communicate with each other about the resources they have and they have need. And the next point is to scenario simulation. So scenario simulation in the sense where it is depends on the virtual reality. We can say that how you can able to get to know that how we need to be prepared for large scale emergencies, and by confronting these stressful and unpredictable situations through virtual reality, so operators feel more prepared, experienced, and ready to take this kind of the situation when they occur in their real life. So therefore, the virtual reality also, which is matters a lot towards expecting and estimating the proportion of damages in the society. So therefore, by that we can able to prepare that how to face and how to tackle that. Then weather forecasting, it's nowadays we know that we can able to see that the notification, or you can look into the mobile with regarding to the weather updates. So easily you can able to get to know the weekly data and the daily data regarding to whether it is cloudy or the sunny. That information easily can it is available through managed service providers are going to be provide these kind of the information regarding to the weather forecasting. And moving to the remote sensing. So remote sensing means it's a severe geophysical or climate events, including earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, landslides, droughts, floods, cyclones, and fire damages threaten the people or property are termed natural hazards, where uh, so developing countries, they are suffer more. I think more than 95% of all deaths caused by natural disasters. So the high population as India, where densities and the poor infrastructure, coupled with the unstable landforms and exposure to severe weather events, makes them particularly vulnerable. So remote sensing, it's a science of acquiring information about the Earth using the remote instruments such as satellites and different types of the equipments which we are going to be used to know about the information regarding to the disasters. And as we clearly state that it's just kind of acquiring the information about the earth's surface without actually being in contract with it. So it is done by sensing and recording reflected and omitted energy, processing, analyzing, and applying the information. So GIS we already discussed, so I will move to the next slide regarding to the GIS. And GPS also we are discussed. And we also have a few tools, so I will explain that regarding to after remote sensing we have a GIS, GPS, even we have a forecasting domain. So forecasting domain means it's one of the way that we can able to predict the future based on the previous data. Whenever the emergencies which are taken place in advance, where we can focus into the forecasting domain. So long-term climate forecast and derived from the satellite observation can help to build various scenarios before or during the early crop growing seasons. And throughout the season, satellite rainfall data can also monitor growing conditions and predict soil moisture. At the end of the season, satellite observe vegetation can be used to check on likely crop production and yield. And we also have a flood monitoring. So flood monitoring also, which is based on the satellites. Satellites can also warn of floods and inform response and recovery efforts. So sometimes whenever you saw the news and all, when they given a weather condition where you can easily locate where what the condition, what pressure of the air or what pressure of the ocean with respect to the tsunami kind of floods and all. So they are easily measured. So that is because of the satellite signals they are going to be measured. Even the volcano, they are going to be do the study by NASA. And even Modi's and AVHRR, where they are going to be detect volcanic activity based on thermal alerts. And we also have a fire mapping. So it's a thermal alerts from Modi's also feed into a fire sensor web. So the Modi's rapid response system, which provides the daily satellite images in near real time. So therefore, they can easily get to know and they can easily identify the hotspot, and they trigger a request for the satellites to collect additional information on the active fire. And even we have for earthquake we have a synthetic uh, aperture radar. So that is where you can able to rectify the level of intensity. And coping with cyclone, so where meteorologists have used satellite images to monitor the storms for decades. So whenever we have a global recognized where a world meteorological organization trop- tropical cyclone programs, so like where they are going to be used the satellite observation together with the meteorological measurement and modeling to produce the cyclone warnings. So, with respect to the GIS and GPS, the use we can able to say that where the GIS where they have a situational awareness and they are helpful to gather the data. So data management become very much easier and field operation we can do. So therefore, by using the GIS, we can have preparedness for planning disasters, and we can forecast and early warning of the uh, disastrous event. And for relief management and rescue operations, GIS database with various themes is very helpful to disaster management in decision making process when catastrophic event occur. And it is also provide the solution for different hazards like earthquake. So GIS can make useful for monitoring historical sites on the earthquake Also, for response data management for recovery, it also useful for impact assessment when there is a concentration of floods. So it is going to be helpful by providing flood mapping from macro level to micro level, and they do flood zone mapping, detecting potential site of flood in reference with respect to rainfall, and elevation mapping and preparedness response map in connection to managing after flood situations. So when you take the consideration of GPS also have the uh, make use of in the for different events like landsliding. So you can able to study the landsliding. So the area prone to landslide can use the GPS to monitor the landslides of little magnitude, events changes in terms of distance, the difference in heights, and the coordinates of places under the observation. And also it is monitoring the landslides, so you can able to manage where the prediction what strategies you must need to be include, or you must need to be implement towards avoid the human loss. And even it is help to flood management and forest fire management, earthquake management, tsunami management, and coupling technology. So coupling technology where you can able to unman a aerial vehicle, so where you can able to get the emergency responses from them, and wildlife management and insect infestation, and monitoring structural deformation, and one point open point mining, pit mining. So these are all the different uses of GPS. So when we take consideration of the uses and applications of emerging technology, so where we can able to say that the use of emerging technology which always helpful towards targeted communication with behavioral changes science, where emergency communication, it is also one of the important function of during the emergency. So with instant and proper communication, nothing can be done. So in an emergency, every second count, as any delay could result in loss of lives and property. So therefore it helps the IT which is going to be helps to targeted the communication, and recruiting the next generation of emergency managers. So it is also helpful whenever there is IT people, so where they are going to be predicting in the right tools, so therefore the results will be more accurate. We can able to reduce the damages. So through wireless and the radio and artificial intelligence, you can make use of it towards hiring the people, and even IoT and blockchain. These are all the kind of different kind of techniques, and robotics also you can make use of to reduce the such kind of hazards, and engaging the whole community in disaster preparedness. Yes, so nowadays the uh, in the academics also they are going to be introducing the subject called IoT, disaster management, and robotics. All these things are going to be included in the academics, so that is going to be helpful in future regarding to once they have a proper knowledge set of mindset and very skillful regarding to this. So surely it is going to be contributed for them to have a better disaster management. So coming to application of emerging technologies, where we have I already said that where we have education, where we have it in communication, healthcare, transportation, and banking system. So nowadays you can get all the information in the banking system through your mobile itself. So this kind of the platform where it is going to be helpful to you to analyze and give a better decisions by using the technologies. So therefore, so you can see that GIS, drone technology, big data analytics, and so on, which is always help to the government towards come out with the best decision. And wherever there is a admission process or general administration or diagnostic assessment, timetabling, and the library services, this kind of the application you can able to do by using the ICST. So it is represent the innumerable digital tools for disaster management. So yet it is faces challenges limiting their impact. Government, international organizations, and civil society should cooperate and collaborate to realize the full potential or descriptive technologies to effectively deal with the humanitarian crisis. So more in research and development and investment will help catalyze global efforts to disaster management. So with this, I think we are completed the sixth module. So with connection to the last slide, which is shown that the different users of ICST, where we are going to be make use in cloud computing and use it in hardware, software, and transactions and internet access, even in the communication technology. So therefore, combination of all these things, which is rely on controlling, managing, and supervising the disasters, which are surely it is a hill for the public. So with this slide, I think I'm completed the discussion on majorly this chapter will focus with these keywords like technologies which is used and wireless radio and blockchain, drone technology and big data analytics and communication. So then now we are going to be moved towards the seventh module with connection to disaster mitigation. So as the name only clears that, so disaster mitigation is one of the action where government or the private party that think of controlling and take care of the situation under the control. So this chapter, which is mainly deals about the meaning and concept of disaster mitigation and strategies which are involved in disaster mitigation and emerging trends in disaster mitigations and mitigation management and role of teams and coordination. So this is the supportive system where which is most important because unless we show the involvement and reaching to the public, it is not possible even though we are come out with the best technology. So therefore this chapter which is going to be helpful towards involvement of the individual and how to take the control in the situations by creating the awareness and by giving the strategies to the public. These chapters is mainly concentrate towards. So disaster mitigation, it is measures. It is going to be have reduce the impact of risk and hazards through proactive measures taken before an emergency or disaster occurs. So as clearly shows that where disaster mitigation, it is a process where the government or the set of bodies they do control the situation by taking a prior actions. So when you look into the definition of character 1991, disaster mitigation is defined as measures aimed at reducing the impact of natural or man-made disasters in a nation of or community. So then moving to the objectives of this chapter is to uh, through the mitigation we can able to save lives, and we can reduce the economic disruption, and we can decrease the vulnerability and increase the capacity building, and decrease the chances and level of conflicts, and enhancement of the internal coordination, and enhancement of the assistance to members, and enhancement of the WMO image. So when we look into the major strategies here, where we have a structure, we can classify it into two categories, that is structural strategies and non-structural strategies. So, as I said, when you have the disaster mitigation strategies, these strategies will always have a should be based on the risk assessment and can be considered in relation to the land use planning and building codes, essential infrastructure, structural works, landscape and environment, and these kind of the mitigation strategies we have a flood mitigation, earthquake risk mitigation, and the constitution of hazard safety cell in states, retrofitting of lifeline buildings, and mainstreaming mitigation in rural distance schemes, natural cyclone mitigation project, and landslide hazard mitigation. So these kind of the structural strategies we have. So when we look into one by one, where we have the land use planning and building codes. So where we have practice of different irrigation system. So where the usage of the land and deforestation, that is going to be have a huge impact. So therefore, as a country, we must need to be concentrate towards land use planning and as well as the building codes. So we have a state planning policy. It is the key component of Queensland planning system. So we call it as state planning policy as SPP. So it is express the state in interest in land use planning and development. So it is including avoidance or mitigation of the risk associated with natural hazards. So they are going to be promote towards uh, avoiding the situation like floods, bushfire, landslide, storm tide, and coastal erosion. And most level of government implement requires that control land use planning and building design and construction, and reduce risk for national natural hazards. And moving to the essential infrastructure, it is one of the responsibility for a social as well as economic human being. So they are relies upon the continuity of essential service provided by critical infrastructure. So therefore, they must need to do care of that. So in the United Nations, there is a separate body like United Nations Office for Disaster Risk and Reduction that describes regarding to resilience as the ability of a system where strong networks between the infrastructure owners and operators and state government agencies and the communities are keys for critical infrastructure resilience. And moving to the structural works. So structural disaster mitigation strategies involves like the application of engineered solution for disaster mitigation strategies, including physical structures which are constructed or modified to reduce or eliminate the disaster inputs. And we also have a landscape and environment. So the appropriate management and the protection of landscapes and the environment is most important. All the organization, including government at all levels, must consider the effects of development relative to the landscape environment, and assessment of the coastal based on the development is undertaken to ensure the protects and conserves coastal resources. This is also enhance the resilience of the coastal communities. And when we take a consideration of non-structural strategy, where we have a HRD, where they are going to be provide the technical training program regarding to how to balance the situation and how to control and how to mitigate the losses, and capacity building of engineers and architects in earthquake risk mitigation. So therefore, they must need to be also aware about the information regarding to what the things they are going to be considered while they do constructing capacity building with respect to the engineers and architects. Then moving to the emerging trends in disaster mitigation, where we can see here the major three. So considering a disaster as an extreme events caused by natural forces has been challenged lately, and it is well understood. It is well. So here they can easily understood as a failure of development mechanism. And one more thing is this is a new understanding has led to the communities and agencies being made accountable for their action. Fitting with this, fitting with this trend is the increased sense of the responsibility of its own role in terms of broader human rights. So therefore, it is make each and everybody to concentrate that why there is a need of the mitigation of the risk. So we can say that it is emphasized, the emerging trend which is currently emphasized in disaster mitigation is to fostering a culture of prevention by creating awareness among the people regarding disaster prevention requirements such as water harvesting, earthquake proof building, and incorporating conditionality for the same in housing loans and insurance schemes. And also it also providing a long-term development perspective to vulnerability reduction matters like managing risk in shanty settlements, controlling migration, to treat the cause of problems over the long run rather than simply tackling the symptoms in the short run. And also it is have a emphasized towards committing the resources to structural mitigation measures, likely earthquake and flood proofing of buildings, especially critical facilities such as hospitals, communication infrastructure, government offices, and tackling impending urban cities as an urgent measure to create resilient cities like Bangalore. And greater resilience of the cities can be ensured through investment in technical, organizational, social, and economic factors. And even on technical or structural investment can be achieved through robustness and redundancy and adoption of critical infrastructure, and developing a disaster management perspective in development programs in general with regard to rural and urban development, and separately or connectedly where as required. Risk management, Shanti settlements has to address the wider problem of rural to urban migration. So this leads us to have a concept of sustainable development. Then moving to the mitigation management team and the coordination of mitigation management, where there is a disaster management team is a group of people. They work together for the disaster to manage and to supervise and to take a control, and it is a team which intends to work towards achievement of mitigation policies. Each member in the team, they know their job and responsibility, and they do coordinate it among themselves towards achieving the mitigation policies. So when we look into the mitigation policies, the valuable guide, we can say that it is have a initiation in connection to disaster offer unique opportunities to introduce mitigation measures, and mitigation can be introduced within the three diverse contexts of reconstruction. The first one is newly investment and the existing environment. So each presents different opportunities to introduce the safety measures. If you take an example of management, so mitigation measures are complex and interdependent, and they involve widespread responsibility. So therefore, the effective leadership and coordination are essential to provide a focal point. And the management must need to be have a mitigation will be most effectively if safety measures are spread through a wide diversity of integrated activities, and active mitigation measures that rely on incentives are more effective than passive measures based on restrictive laws and controls. So when you are place the restrictive control, obviously the control will be diluted, and they are not taken back into more importance. And mitigation must not be isolated from related elements of disaster planning, such as preparedness, relief, and reconstruction. And when we take a consideration of prioritization, so where the resources are limited, priority should be given to the protection of the key special groups, critical services, and vital economic structures. Monitoring and evaluation, which is continuously need to do it, and whenever they do changing in the pattern of hazards, vulnerability, and resources, they must need to be respond in the right manner. And when we come to institutionalization, where mitigation measures should be sustainable, so it should be for the long run. It is not just a tactic which you are going to be used. And so therefore you must need to be have a public apathy, because when you consider for the long run sustainability, there should be considered the public apathy towards long periods between major disasters. And political commitment is most vital, as well as their initiation and the maintenance of mitigation. That is also will be one of the important area where they need to be concentrate on. So coming to the role of the team, where when we take a consideration of the role of the team, early warning team, so where they must need to be in the responsibility towards providing whatever the hazards or whatever the problem, or whatever the disaster which is going to be taken place, priorly they must need to be come out with the information, and they must need to make it available to the common public regarding to the de-warning messages, to decide the timing for calling of the emergency state and all. So this kind of the decision that is most important from the point of the state. and evacuation search and the rescue team. So you must need to be take the right people to the right job. So where you are need to be take the members, they must need to be trained with the help of civil defense, police and fire services. And also you must need to be evacuated and carry out your search and your resource rescue operation during the time of emergency. The members of the team are mainly young men and women of the village, ex-servicemen and swimmers. So these teams are surely where they are going to be contribute better for avoiding the risk situations. And shelter management team, so uh, they are also following up the disaster scenario where they are mainly focused to provide the materials like food, drinking water, medicines, bleaching powder, firewood and latrine. So so these kind of uh, necessities, they must need to make it arranged. And sometimes the team leader or any other team member should have the key of the safe shelters, so that prior to the disaster they will clean up and they place and make available the necessary materials like whatever they say, I said earlier, to evacuate during the disaster period. And water and sanitation team, so hope you know that it is one of the basic necessity where the members of the team, they must need to be ensure the availability of safe drinking water and the cleanliness of the village, that there is no danger of epidemics even after the event. There will be make arrangements of the storing drinking water and water for cooking and other chores. And also there will be a medical and first aid team. So this team which is going to be create the awareness, as well as they are very much ready towards taking the responsibility for preparing and updating of the vulnerable population, and like old and aligned people and pregnant ladies, children, they must need immediate first aid facility. So they are ready to do all such things in the particular team. So therefore, they have to collect health related information and make community aware of the health measures to be taken up. Women and existing health practitioners of the village are the members of the team, and the team would receive periodic training from the local medical, so that will be preferable for a personnel. And we also have a relief coordination team. So relief coordination team is a team which is mainly work for uh, wholesale dealership, where the food grains are available and for use during the time of emergency. And we also have a damage assessment team. So this team which is going to be helpful to get to know the real coverage of the particular loss, and they are going to be given a valuable suggestion to the government that what is the damage of houses, lively assets and crops and all. So the government functionary from the state revenue department carries out such assessment after a particular period. So during this exercise, the damage assessment team helps him or her in making a timely and useful assessment. So these are all the kind of where they can able to focus on how the team and what way they need to be coordinate in the duration of the whatever the epidemic situation which is taken place. So as clearly I mentioned here, the major characteristic of the team must need to be work with all these characteristics, like where they should have appropriate leadership and confidence in its leadership, and a clear and shared understanding of its objectives and realization that achievement of objectives is measurable, and high but realistic and achievable goals should be there, and organization of the team in manner consistent with the goals and the roles clearly defined and assigned to the team members. concern for welfare and growth of team members, and use of knowledge and skills of the team members are most essential towards understanding the situation and controlling take a control of the situation, and the ability of the members to accomplish the objectives. Yes, there is an encouragement, there is a consideration towards the team members who are work for the betterment. Use problem solving techniques. So as I said, what how the importance of IT in solving disaster management problems, and open communication. So as clearly indicates that whatever the situation, whatever the incidents, whatever the scenario, you must need to have a open communication. And willingness of the member to compromise. Yes, there is a need of compromising uh, attitude by every individual who are part of it. And adherence of the time schedule. Yes, everything should be accurate with respect to the time and the schedule whatever they made, because the delay in the disaster management surely it is going to be impact negatively towards the public life. And regular evaluation of result. Yes, there is a need of continuous evaluation for the sustainability of the economy. So this is the most important thing where the effective team that they can able to contribute effectively and efficiently for the betterment of the country. So with this, I think I completed the seventh module. So kindly take 2 minutes break, and after that we will come back. Yeah, thank you all for your time. So now we are moving to the last module. So that is disaster management in India. So this chapter, which is mainly constituted towards the introduction and objectives and the profile of disasters and mega disaster of India and Disaster Management Act 2005. And there is a bodies like disaster national policy and disaster management and national disaster management guidelines and national disaster management plan and national disaster management authority. and we are followed with the conclusion. So in India, we can see that traditionally vulnerable to natural disaster on account of its unique geographic climate conditions like floods, droughts, cyclones, earthquakes, and landslides have been a recurrent phenomenon. About 60% of the land mass is prone and to earthquake of various intensities, or 40 millions hectares is prone to floods. About 8% of the total area is prone to cyclones, and 68% of the area is susceptible to droughts. So in India, we have a highly vulnerable to all types of natural disasters, with the possible exceptions of volcanic eruptions, about which also we cannot afford to be uh, complacent. So the geographical conditions, therefore, significant regional and seasonal aspect of occurrence natural disasters in India, where we have like on account of multi-layered vulnerability, the country has witnessed an increase in the frequency and the intensity of the disasters in the past, resulting in the widespread devastation. So this inference is drawn by only on the basis of disaster which have been reported. Many of the disasters, particularly in the remote areas, go unreported because local administrations lack administration lack the technical and the human resources for community level disaster monitoring, and are not able to fully identify or map potential local hazards or develop the appropriate disaster management plans. So here, where they have the whatever the bodies they have such kind of the objectives where the there is a improving the tolerance level, and preventing losses and damages as well as dangers, providing relief to the affected people, preparing for action to be taken at the time of disaster, assessing the damage caused, management of rescue for the affected, and rehabilitation and rebuilding the affected area. So these are the major focus that why we need the chapter called disaster management. When we look into the deeper in the Indian scenario, the India is a unique geoclimate positions making any particular vulnerable natural disaster. So the regional and the seasonal profile of India has been presented in this paper, where the main objective that to understanding the various natural disaster happening in the various parts of India, and it is also focused on regional profile of India, and consideration in connection to the stress has been given on various disaster happening all over the country as per geographical location of the area. So when we look into the regional disaster profile of India, where the North India comprising the Himalayan mountains region and the Gangetic plains has highly variable topography with the some of the tallest mountain and perennial rivers. So when you take a consideration of North Indian states like Jammu and Kashmir, Himachal Pradesh, Punjab, Haryana, Uttaranchal, Delhi, where the natural disaster in the form of earthquake, landslides, avalanches, floods, drought, heat, and cold waves will be there. When you look into the east and northeast India, like West Bengal, Sikkim, Assam, Arunachal Pradesh, Nagaland, Manipur, Tripura, and Mizoram, where they have a landslide, earthquake, floods, droughts. So there's no kind of uh, heat and cold weather will be there. And when you look into the central part of the country, where India, where you can find that Orissa, Chhattisgarh, Jharkhand, Madhya Pradesh, Rajasthan, Gujarat, and Maharashtra, they have highly variable rainfall regime, both in time as well as space. So therefore, there is a floods and droughts are major disaster in those areas. When you take a consideration of Orissa and Gujarat, they are highly suffer from the cyclones, and even the Goa and Maharashtra. So likewise, the when we take a consideration of regional wise, there is a imbalances. There is a not properly make use of the information in the right way towards controlling the situations. So when we have a seasonal disaster profile of India, when we look into that, where from the climate point of view, where India experiences four distinct seasons, which are winter, that is from December, January, and February, and pre-monsoon or hot weather season, where March, April, and May, and monsoon season in the June to September, and post monsoon will be in the October and November. So based on that, the rainfall will be fluctuating in the different places. Like if you take a consideration of the winter season, so Himalayan ranges receive the copious amounts of rain and snow and weather phenomenon known as a western